Hi, and welcome to episode 64 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. My name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet, and today is Wednesday, the 1st of February 2017. I'm coming to you from the central west of New South Wales in Australia, and it's lovely to have your company. Hello to all the new subscribers out there. I've noticed that the numbers have been creeping up again, which is lovely to see. Apologies for some of the quirks in last week's episode. I'm still working on some of the audio and video sort of little niggly bits since getting a new computer. So I've still got a little funny black spot up there and trying to figure out all the colors and audio issues. But hopefully over the coming episodes, I'll get them sorted out. As I mentioned last week, the next few episodes are going to be spread out a little bit sporadically, and then I should be getting back to weekly recording in March. This week I have a couple of finished objects as well as a work in progress and some acquisitions. So my first finished object is a little bit of spinning. So these two little balls of yarn were little experiments that I did with some fondant fibre roll lags that I had. My nieces asked for some purple and some pink yarn, and these aren't quite purple and pinky enough, I think, for them, but I spun them for them, and I'm sure that they can figure out something to do with them. I was trying out my normal short forward draw and just adjusting the diameter of my singles as I was doing these, and then I two-plied them. So I think they're a little bit wobbly, but I hadn't spun for a little while and I got in some practice, so it was fun to get those done. And then I couldn't help myself, but I decided to spin up this Renanoli fibre that I got, and I showed this last week. It was called Once Upon a Star, and it's a 75% merino, 25% nylon fibre, and I was very attracted to it when I saw it on Instagram and had to get it from the shop, and it was such a wonderful spin. Absolutely loved the feel of the fibre, didn't have any issues at all with the nylon content in there. It spun up beautifully, and I have this to show for it. So with the fibre, what I did was I opened up the braid and split it horizontally into two portions, sort of folded it in two so I could approximately take half and half. I split it, weighed it, it was 50 grams each, so started spinning. I spun up two singles bobbins and then two-plied it. With the spinning, on the first bobbin, I pre-drafted a fair bit, and I was getting very pastel colours, which was interesting based on the way that the braid had looked in the beginning, but there was a lot of white in there, so I knew that it would settle some of those colours that had been so strong in the braid. With the second bobbin, I decided to do less pre-drafting and spin from the braid. Had no problems doing that, and the colours were a little bit stronger in the second bobbin. And the result is this. So I kind of had a bit of an accident when I'd finished plying the yarn. I put it onto my niddy noddy and put it into soak, and I didn't put ties in it. I thought, oh, I don't need to put ties in it. And I then put it in my salad spinner, and that was probably the biggest mistake. If I hadn't put it in the salad spinner to get some of the water out of it, I think I probably wouldn't have ended up in the tangle that I did, but I ended up with a massive tangle of yarn, and I let it dry first and then had to spend several hours trying to untangle it. I wound it into balls from both ends as I was trying to figure out how to get the tangles out, and then I put it back on my niddy noddy to make up a skein. But it's a lesson for me to always put ties into my skeins before I soak them, because otherwise I will end up with a tangle. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is going to be a subtly striping sock yarn, and I think it's going to be wonderful to knit up and great to wear, so I'm looking forward to knitting those socks at some point. Probably not in the immediate future, just because I'm doing a fair bit of stockinette at the moment, and I think this will benefit from just a plain stockinette sock. And I'm itching to do some other kind of knitting at the moment, so I'll get onto it soon, but probably not by next week. But I really do want to knit it, so you never know. I have also been working on my Free Spirit pullover or jumper or sweater or whatever you want to call it. So this is how it's looking at the moment. So last time I recorded, I had split for the sleeves, and I've been working on the body. So it's a stockinette body. So this is why I'm itching to do some cables or lace or something, because it's a lot of knitting in the round, and it's been fun while watching tennis to just knit and practice not looking while I'm knitting, but it does get a little bit monotonous after a while. So that's partly why I was so keen to do a bit of spinning, just to do something a little bit different with my hands. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. The pattern is easy to follow. I love the fact that it's providing all the stripe sequencing. So the stripe sequencing will also carry through on the sleeves so that it matches up with the body, which is nice that I don't have to even think about it. So this has got some yarns from Miss Click Clack, Circus Tonic Handmade, as well as Knit Picks. I've got 5 different colours in here, and I think it's going to look great. Because I'm staring at it so close, the only one that I'm not entirely thrilled with is the Knit Picks Thunderhead, and it's a tonal yarn, and it sort of goes from very light grey through to a sort of bluey grey through to a darker grey, and I just find that it's a little bit close to a couple of the other yarns that I've got in here. So I think if I was to knit this again and use a tonal yarn, I would use one which has a different colour to any of the other colours in here. Then I don't think it would bother me so much. And I think overall, as from a distance, no one can tell that there's a tonal yarn, but like you can see along here, it just changes colour and sort of fades away a little bit. So not entirely convinced that that was a good choice, but I'm happy with it. I'm absolutely happy with it. It's going to be a wonderful cozy jumper. I pretty much decided that I will knit the longer version of the body, and then for the sleeves, I'm not sure. There is a shorter sleeve and a longer sleeve version of it. So the pattern is very flexible, and I think it comes in quite a few different sizes, so it can be knit for people of all sorts of shapes. What else? On here, I've got some cable stoppers. So after last week, I went searching around for some cable stoppers and cable connectors for higher sharps, because I got the higher sharps from Santa, and my kit didn't contain them, but they're so cute, the little pandas. Oh, so I got those from eBay from a chronic yarnaholic. I think that's the right name, and they turned up very quickly, and I'm very happy with them. So they just pop onto the cables, and when I'm not knitting. So unlike the little, I've got some purple rubbery ones from Knit Picks that just sort of pop onto the top of the needle. These ones actually pop onto the cable. So I took my needles off here just so that I'm not going to drop my needles. But it's handy if you're swapping needles off between different projects. But I am now craving all sorts of other projects at the moment. But I don't know. I'm not sure how long I'll take to do this, but it is very hot out here at the moment, so there's no particular rush. So if I pick up another project, it's going to be okay. This week I haven't knit any blanket squares because I'm running low on minis at the moment, but once I get through this project, I'm going to have five more yarns actually 4 more because one of them I've already used in my blanket. I'll have those to pop into my blanket, and I've only done a few rows on a pair of socks that I started before the holidays, so they're not worth showing. And I've mainly been looking around for other projects to work on. So there was quite a few recommendations in the Ravelry group for socks with interesting heel constructions after last week's episode. So thank you for those. I've been looking through them, and there's a few there definitely that I want to try out. And I'm just sort of, I want to do socks with some kind of texture on them, I think, at the moment, so that I get something else to work on in stockinette, and then I'll try out one of those heels. I also found a wonderful skirt. I think it was a new pattern. It's called Tweel by Anne Hansen, and it's a DK weight skirt with cables and interesting textures on it, and it just looks beautiful. So that has gone up high in my queue. I'm just trying to figure out, because I don't think I have DK weight yarn in a larger quantity in my stash at the moment, but I might need to go shopping. I have to just think about what kind of fabric or what kind of yarn fiber to get for a skirt, because it's going to be a bit hard wearing as I sit and stand and jump around, and might need to have a bit of a boogie when I'm wearing it. So yeah, maybe a yarn purchase in the future, but it definitely, from the skirts that I found on Ravelry, it's the one that's most sort of excited me as a potential project. So that could be started as soon as I figure out what yarn I'm going to use. But I should go digging through my stash a little bit more just to check. Yeah, we'll see, but that's likely to come up in the future. So apart from that, not a huge amount of stuff has been going on, but I have some acquisitions. So along with the cable stoppers, I also got some cable connectors. So they just look like this, and they're nice and short in comparison to the ones for my Knit Pro needles, which are kind of long, and it means that when you connect two cables up, and if you're using both cables on a project, you always have to sort of swing it around a little bit because it kind of gets caught. So I'm looking forward to trying out these shorter ones just to see how they go. And there was also some of the little rubbery twister, don't know what they're called, things to attach your needle tips to the cables. So I also got this. This is my set that I got. Whoops. Hold on. Sorry about that. This is the kit that I got from Santa, and it came with this beautiful, beautiful sheep. So this has got the European sizes on one side and the US sizes on the other, which is always handy to have. And I don't know what this kit is called because Santa brought it to me, and I just quickly looked at it, and I think there was a little explanation in there. But it has the various needle tips, and then there's a bunch of cables in little plastic bags. So I'm not sure why they have two sizes. Probably because I think the tips come in two different lengths. So it's a 60, 66, 80, 86, 100, 106, and 40, 46. So depending on what size needle tips you've got, the cables will make up different lengths. So absolutely loving this kit. Loving the feel of the needles to work with, and on the cables, the actual bit that you join the needle tip onto, it swivels, and I had no idea that HireHires did that, but I've noticed that my cables aren't getting as sort of warped as with my Knit Pro needles, and yeah, absolutely loving the kit. The only downside was that it didn't have the cable stoppers and the cable connectors, but that's all been sorted now. So my other acquisition has been some yarn, and I decided to do a swap with Christy, who's the dyer behind Yarn Cafe Creations, and I sent her a project bag that she was after, and she sent me some yarn, and I got to choose which yarn I wanted. And I had seen this, which is Ocean Mist. I'd seen this knit up into socks on Instagram, and I've been really curious about it. The colours are fantastic. There's some speckles, there's some tonal sections, and then some more saturated sections of greens and oranges. So I'm really keen to knit this into some socks. This is on her fluffy sock base, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it's 437 yards or 400 meters to 100 grams. And I'm not sure if this will show up, but that's her. I don't think it's going to focus. I haven't figured out how to get this new camera to focus yet, but yeah. Absolutely squishy soft. It's amazingly soft for a 75-25 blend, and it's going to make some really luxurious socks. So I'm looking forward to knitting with that. But she also sent me a little mini. Actually, this is a big mini. This is 25 grams, and this is the same blend, and it's called Duckling. So that's a really nice combination. So I think they're definitely going to be, that's going to be heels and cuffs and toes, and that's going to be the sock part. So I just need to decide what sock pattern to use and what heel pattern to use, but they're going to be a wonderful combination. So I definitely recommend checking out Yarn Cafe Creations. She started a podcast. She's up to the 9th episode, and it's called The Girls in the Yarn Cafe, because she started off by herself, and then she's been joined by her daughter Tristan, who's also a yarn dyer. Oops, I got interrupted by a courier delivery. So I was talking about the girls in the Yarn Cafe. So Christy and Tristan are the wonderful girls in the Yarn Cafe, and they have long episodes. They can be from an hour and a half to 2 hours, where they talk about yarn dyeing and knitting, as well as all sorts of other topics that happen to crop up. And there's a wonderful dynamic between mother and daughter, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So I'm very happy that I have some Yarn Cafe Creations yarns now to try out, and I suggest checking out their podcast if you haven't already. Apart from that, just a little bit of chatter. So there are a lot of Aussie related knit-alongs going on at the moment, so I'm trying to figure out how I can take part in some of those. I couldn't rattle off all the different podcasters that are doing them, but I'm sure that if you follow some Aussie podcasters, then you'll have heard about them already. But there's wonderful prizes up for grabs, so I recommend checking those out. My little garden, last week my video didn't end up in the final cut somehow of my garden walkthrough, and the heat that we've been having, it's been sort of hovering around the mid-30s Celsius, which is in the 90s Fahrenheit, and it's not doing so well at the moment. So I'll see if I can pop in last week's video, and because my lettuces have started going to seed, my strawberries have wilted a little bit, and it's just not looking as pretty as it did. But I did have some success with some of my growings. So last night I had a meal where I had lettuce and cherry tomatoes and yellow tomatoes from the garden as a salad, along with some carrots and zucchinis. So I made those with pasta, and it was nice to be able to have some homegrown food. Very different taste to what you get from sort of store-bought vegetables, but I'm hoping that I can figure out a little bit more sort of seasonal and area suitable vegetables and what have you in the future, so that I can have more nice meals from the garden. And hopefully as summer sort of starts to cool down a bit, then I'll be able to get some proper sort of some winter vegetables sort of planned and growing. Apart from that, on Thursday last week was the Australia Day national holiday, and I went along to the Carcoar Village Fair. Carcoar's a little village down the road. It's about 5 minutes drive away, and they had a village fair with about 4,000 people, I think they said, turned up, which is pretty good for a town that or a village that only has a few hundred people to it. But it's a beautiful place. I've been there a few times and talked about the Carcoar pottery shop that's there, and it was great to see the village full of life. It was very hot, and there were people in period costume wandering around, which was impressive. But they also had a reenactment of the first attempted robbery on a bank in Australia. So I'll put that video in at the end. Um, I don't know, it was interesting to watch, but there were also some old cars there. There was a lot of stalls selling sort of locally made things as well as food, and it was nice to wander around and have a look and see what was what. And it's great that a small village can get such a turnout on a national holiday, especially when there's all sorts of other markets and things going on. Um, I will be back in a week or two and hopefully have some more varied projects to share with you and show you. But I hope that you're well and keeping crafty. And the video at the end is going to have some weapons and some bangs. So if you don't want to watch that, feel free to switch off and tune out. Completely understood. So I'll see you soon.